Sawadee Kap, fellow travelers. This week we're in Pattaya, often mispronounced in English as Pattaya, but actually Pattaya. And we're doing what everyone knows Pattaya for. Good, wholesome, family-friendly, religious enlightenment. Today we're at a museum/temple called the Sanctuary of Truth, but the temple itself isn't going to be our focus today. The Buddhism practiced here in Thailand, Theravada Buddhism, is different than in our home base in Vietnam, where they practice Mahayana Buddhism. Today, we're going to be looking at the differences and similarities between the two. First, a little bit of a primer on the backstory of Buddha. For those who don't already know, born Siddhartha Gautama, at some point between the 4th and 6th centuries BCE, a prophecy was given to his father at birth that Siddhartha would grow to become one of two things: a powerful king or a spiritual leader. His father, wanting him to be a king, decided that the best way to keep him from becoming a religious leader was to make sure that he never experienced any suffering that could have caused him to question the ways of the world. So, to ensure he was raised to dominate the world instead, he was kept in his palace and was never allowed to witness the realities of the world. And random fun fact, he was born in the village of Lumbini, modern-day Nepal, and downtown Bangkok there's a beautiful and massive park that is worth checking out if you're ever in the city, named by King Rama VI in 1925 as Lumpini. Anyway, it's said that once Gautama made it to 29 years old, he snuck past the palace guards and went on to explore the village. Buddhists refer to what he saw next as the four signs: an old man, a sick man, a dead man, and a religious ascetic. An ascetic being a devout religious follower who practices strict self-discipline. When he saw all this, he realized that he could also get sick, he would also get old, and he would eventually die and lose everything that he cared about and loved. After much study and meditation, he eventually achieved enlightenment, becoming the Buddha, or the Enlightened One. We'll get back to some of his teachings when we discuss them in the context of the differences between Theravada and Mahayana traditions. His religious teachings and practices spread quickly, and after about 100 years there came to be a first, which may be apocryphal, and a second Buddhist council, which basically all scholars agree was definitely a real thing that happened. The council was in a dispute over the use by monks of money, which makes sense, but also the correct way to store salt, which might sound a little silly now, but remember, this is around the same time that the Roman Empire was conquering much of West Asia with the first professional army in the world, with salaries paid in salt. It was basically money back then. Anyway, the stricter, more conservative monks were given the name Staviras, which meant elders, and would go on to become the Theravada school, and the more liberal breakaway group was called Mahasanghikas, precursors to what would become the Mahayana tradition. While an uncountable number of other schools and traditions have sprung up over the millennia, Theravada and Mahayana remain the two dominant sects. Let's keep our focus on Theravada for now, since it's said to teach the oldest and most traditional forms of worship of the faith. These elders migrated to Sri Lanka during the 3rd century BCE under the reign of King Ashoka, establishing the great monastery in Anuradhapura. This is where the previously orally communicated teachings of the Buddha were first written down. It was written in the Pali language, and in English is often referred to as the Pali Canon. Sorry, quick correction/clarification. The Pali language didn't have its own script, so it's written in a variant of the script from the Brahmi language, which would go on to become the basis for both Burmese and Thai writing systems, despite being totally different language families. So cool, it should have its own video. Anyway, from here, the tradition spread back into India, eventually to modern Myanmar, and into Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia, still being the dominant strain of Buddhism in those countries to this day. During British occupation of India, it was this school of thought that was introduced to the West, and is generally still the root of most Western understandings of Buddhism. Now, let's look at the Mahayana tradition, so that we can start comparing and contrasting the two. Now, Mahayana translates to something like the great vehicle, essentially a ubiquitous means of moving forward. It's much more philosophically expansive. While Theravada is hyper-focused on monastic life and is centered around the idea that only the holiest of holy monks could achieve nirvana, the Mahayana tradition was much more open and positioned itself as a pathway available to all, and that anyone could achieve enlightenment, not just elite monastics. This is as good a place as any for a quick and extremely simplified reminder on how reincarnation is supposed to work. The specifics vary from school to school, but essentially if you're bad in life, you're reincarnated as a lower being, or either a lower level animal or a person with a lower quality of life. If you're good, you're reincarnated at a higher level, the end goal being to achieve a level of universal understanding that allows you to go to nirvana, essentially a Buddhist heaven where you no longer have to go through the cycles of reincarnation. Theravada teachings focus on individualism and self-discipline to progress along what's called the Eightfold Path. Enlightenment is only possible for the holiest monastic monks. Mahayana introduced the idea of the bodhisattva, sharing the same root word as Buddha, which is a person who forgoes their own enlightenment, instead choosing to live in samsara, or a willful state of suffering so as to help others relieve their suffering. The most famous of these bodhisattvas is likely Guan Yin of 11th century China, Quan Am in Vietnamese. In Zen Buddhism, popular in East Asia, which is a subset of Mahayana, denotes the bodhisattva vows as such. Beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unattainable. I vow to attain it. Instead of traveling through Southeast Asia by way of Myanmar, Mahayana traditions migrated north into what is now Tibet, spread through the rest of China, Nepal, and Bhutan, then into Mongolia, Korea, Japan, and Vietnam, where it's still predominant. So let's take a step back and consider them side by side. While Buddhism as a whole originated in Northeast India, the Theravada school, established in 383 BCE, was centered out of Sri Lanka. Mahayana developed within India, emerging somewhere around the year 0. Theravada focuses its teaching on the Pali Canon, while the actual name being the Tipitaka, the earliest known written versions of the Buddha's teachings. Mahayana also uses the Tipitaka, but also includes sutras in their teachings. A sutra is an old Sanskrit word meaning thread, which is actually kind of a helpful way of thinking about it in the modern context. Essentially, Buddha is the OP, and the bodhisattvas are continuing the thread he started. The main goal for followers of Theravada is to become an arhat, or one who attains enlightenment for themselves through self-discipline, whereas followers of Mahayana aim to become a bodhisattva with the aim of liberation for all, after which they also become a Buddha. This brings up another interesting contextual point. In the Theravada school, the original Buddha is understood to be a human teacher, a mortal, whereas Mahayana, the school that teaches enlightenment is open for all, see the original Buddha as a transcendent, supernatural entity. While both focus heavily on meditation, Theravada focuses inwards and on the improvement of the self, while Mahayana focuses outward, more concerned with the way that practitioners ease the suffering of the masses and promote widespread enlightenment. Well, that was a lot to get through, so that'll be it from us this week. If you've made it this far, make sure to lick that like button, subscribe. We'll catch you on the next one. Later!